So hi, this is Shantha Wetterhan with Competitive Edge Social Media Marketing. I'm here with Carel Bekker of ClickHost. We'll be speaking about malware today. And just, there are so many statistics out there about malware just taking over. It seems like there's a threat every single day. And once we get started with our conversation, I'll go into some of those statistics. I think you'll be very surprised about malware and how we're all at risk. And so, I'd like to introduce Carel Bekker. He's owner of ClickHost. They do website development and they help with threats like malware. They help keep your site backed up. And I'll let Carel talk a little bit more about himself and his company and what they do in terms of malware.
Thank you, Shantha. This is fun, by the way. My first time on a blah.
My second.
Okay. Seems to be a great platform. So I'm the owner of ClickHost. We've been hosting websites for 15 years, and we've been dealing with malware for most of that time. It's a constant threat, but we'll be talking about some fairly, I would say, easy things that your listeners or viewers can do that can help them prevent malware, and also, if something happens and their website is hacked, ways they can clean up the malware.
Okay, yeah. So 15 years, I'm sure you've seen things change a lot through the years in terms of malware and what's out there, the different threats, and how things have really probably become even more sophisticated.
Yeah, so the biggest thing, and this is probably the last 5 years or so, the biggest thing is really, it used to be that hacking was sort of a sport, and the hackers would want to deface, what's called defacement. They want to put their own page on a website, and then they keep score that way, so they can tell their buddies, go and look at all these websites that we've defaced. And the way they show that they've done it is, there's a different page on the website. So that's the way they would keep score. So it was very much a manual process. Over the last 5 years, things have really changed a lot, and the hackers have very sophisticated software. So if a new vulnerability comes out, they basically plug it into their software system, and then that software system starts to scan the web for websites or systems with those vulnerabilities, and they would automatically hack into those into those websites. So it's gone from sort of a sport to where it's now very sophisticated, or very sophisticated software systems. And a little bit later on, we can talk about, a lot of people say, but I've got only a small website, why would anybody care about my little website? It's all about accessing the resources that you have.
Right. Absolutely. Well, during some research over the weekend for our interview, I had no idea the threats, how much it's grown. Every single day, there are 1 million new malware threats released, and that equates to 317 million new pieces of malware. So this includes the computer viruses that we all are probably familiar with and other malicious software. These were all just created last year, 317 million new strains of it. And so it just seems like hackers are really hitting the malware threats even more. They find out ways where they can compromise systems, and then they do so. I think about the Sony threat, and just recently they're saying that Fitbit has some potential to be hacked. And, some of the data that I came across said that hackers actually relied on old computer bugs. So it's really nothing. They're not recycling anything new. They're just finding new ways to use it. And companies haven't gotten around to fixing it yet. So I just want to find out what's preventing companies from taking the lead and fixing old bugs from the early 2000s.
Well, in larger companies, obviously, it's just a cost and a resource problem. It's expensive to replace multiple computers and multiple software systems. So that's typically in large companies. And smaller companies, obviously, it's a cost factor as well. But it's also just, people are not always in the know. I don't want to say they're ignorant, but they don't really think about security as being a part of what you need to do to run a business. There are some older systems that it's not easy to replace them. So, they would have to rewrite a whole environment, like a banking system, it may be a small piece of their overall environment, but to replace the full environment is going to be very costly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, over time, the hackers do become more sophisticated, and they find those older bugs where people probably forgot about it or they don't think about it. And now, these older bugs are coming to the surface, and they're being exploited, to hack into systems.
That makes sense. So for those who don't know, let's back up a little bit. Can you tell us about the different types of malware out there, and why is it such a threat? Why should we all be extra vigilant about malware and the threat that it poses to our personal and private information online?
That is I can quickly give you a short definition of what malware is. So malware is it's a abbreviation for malicious code or malicious, software. So everything that you run on your computer obviously is software, and it's software that you approved and you want to run on your computer. Malware is malicious software. So it's something that somebody puts, on your computer, or even, you mentioned the Fitbit, and the iPhone. All our devices, people can put software on there that you didn't approve. And it can be fairly mundane, but it can also be very destructive, like ransomware, where it would lock down your PC. And unless you pay, the hackers a certain fee, they'll destroy, all your files. Mm-hmm. So why do you have to care about it? Obviously, more and more our businesses and our personal information we store in a digital format. Our family pictures, our IRS returns, our business financials. A lot of what we do now, we store online in a digital format, and you want to protect that. It's like locking and putting an alarm on the front door of your office. You want to protect assets, and your business assets these days are more and more digital. And the question in terms of why, hackers want to hack into your system, like I said, in the old days, it was very much about keeping score. These days, most hackers actually don't want you to know that they hacked into your system, because they want to use your resources. They want to use your computing power. They want to use your clean IP so that they can send out spam, to the world. Because the email systems are becoming more sophisticated, and they can quickly, if email is being sent from an IP address that's been blacklisted, a lot of the software systems will block that. So the hackers want to access your clean environment so that they can use that for their malicious purposes. So,
how long does it typically take for someone to figure out that they've been hacked in that way?
The sophisticated malware can be, the statistics in terms of large parts of the world where for many, many months, the owners of the PCs or the computers don't know that they've been hacked. Mm-hmm. And again, the sophisticated hackers, that's what they want. They don't want you to know that, they're using your resources. Google is pretty good. You've probably seen it where you go on Google and you type a URL and Google will pop up, a message to say, be careful, this website was compromised. Mm-hmm. So from a website perspective, you'll know pretty soon, within, if not within a day, within at least a week, that there's something bad going on. In terms of spamming, if somebody hacked into your system, you'll start to get bounced messages from people, so you would send an email, and if the email bounced back with a message, that means that that somebody compromised your email system.
So what can we do in order to protect ourselves and our assets from a threat of malware?
Well, there's some basic things in terms of, I would call it, personal computing hygiene. And it's the basic stuff that we all know. For example, it doesn't matter if you have a PC or a Mac. If there's a new update of the software, make sure you update your software. So keep all your software as up to date as possible. That's one important thing. Password management. I mean, passwords, that still remains a big way that hackers get into people's systems. So make sure you keep your passwords fresh and not password or 123 or there was actually a list. Let me see if I can quickly get the list. But the top 10 passwords, they've been monitoring this, and the number one password is 123456.
That's kind of lazy.
That's very lazy. Number 4 was password. Number 6 is princess. Number 7 is rock you. So, I mean, there's just very, people are very lazy when it comes to passwords. So how can you make that it's, where you can create strong passwords and you don't become lazy, is to use a password manager. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you're familiar with LastPass. Yeah. So I highly recommend people use some form of password manager. I would typically not recommend using the browser functionality. A lot of browsers comes with the ability to store passwords. I would probably not recommend that, but use a password manager. I'm not sure about Windows, but Apple also with iCloud, they now have a password manager. Okay. And it just makes it easy to log into your systems.
It does, yeah. I manage a lot of clients' social media profiles, and LastPass has really helped kind of streamline the process. And I don't even need to know their passwords because I just log in with my admin information and we go from there. So I think it's a great tool to use to protect those passwords. You're right. Yeah.
And then if you do need to update the password, it's very easy because it generates you can generate up to a 15-character password. So they make it easy to update your passwords. Yeah. Some other things when all of us, these days we work in public environments like a Starbucks. Mm-hmm. Just be careful. Make sure you're logging on to the Wi-Fi that you believe you're logging on to. A lot of times in public environments, somebody would create a Wi-Fi signal that looks like that's the one that you're supposed to log on. If you do that, obviously they're going to get into your systems. If you are in a public environment, use SSL. SSL is when you log in with HTTPS.
Okay.
Most systems, I see blah, they do that by default. Facebook, Google, a lot of the larger companies are now defaulting to a secure connection.
Okay.
So that's just in terms of, accessing the internet in a public environment. And then email is still a favorite way for hackers to get into our systems. And that is they would send an email that looks like it's coming from Apple or Facebook or Microsoft, but it's not. Mm-hmm. And they typically have a link to say, click on this link to get your free prize or, to update your information. And as soon as you click on that link, they would download malware or do something that you didn't want them to do.
Yeah.
So it's called phishing,
Yeah.
where they send emails. I mean, a lot of the large hacks that happened recently with Sony, I don't think the Target one was a little bit different, but the Sony one was definitely where a lot of the banks, that's how it happens, is somebody sends an email to the bank, and if they click on the link, that opens up all kinds of problems for them.
Absolutely. I know a lot of seniors get affected by that phishing because, they think that at least in my family, they think that if it's online, then it's probably legitimate and they get taken advantage of. So that's unfortunate that that segment of the population is being preyed upon with things like that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I've received a couple of emails recently from friends, people I know pretty well, where the email reads, "I'm stuck in Italy. I'm on vacation and my wife had to go into the hospital. Can you send me, $5,000 or something?" Yeah. The email, the English is pretty good and it looks very legit, but obviously that's a scam.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one. I was actually trying to sell a property that I have in another state, and I got one from the real estate agent. And I mean, I didn't realize that it was phishing until afterwards, but I decided not to work with them because I was thinking, okay, you're asking for money, you're stuck in a foreign country, I'm not going to do business with you. But unfortunately, they got hacked, but it was terrible for their branding, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, I say absolutely. You have to be careful with things like that.
Okay, so if I woke up tomorrow and I open my computer and it's evident that I'm hacked, what's the first step that I need to take?
There are multiple things you can do. The first one is just to take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. It can be disruptive and, it can be tough, but it's not the end of the world. For them, usually it's not the end of the world. So it's a good idea to immediately reset your passwords. The important ones, like if you use Gmail for your email, make sure you update that password. If you use iCloud or one of the other systems, make sure you reset your passwords. If it's something related to your website or your email, then obviously contact your hosting provider as soon as you can. And they have different steps that they can follow to make sure they clean up, the malware. Because typically it's a script or it's something that's installed, on your website that causes the problems. And if you know a little bit about it, you can, we can easily find it and clean it up.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about what you guys do for people in terms of malware and helping them out.
Yeah. So ClickHost is a hosting company. So we host websites for all kinds of businesses. And as part of our hosting service, we do two things. The one is we provide very strong email filtering. And it's not just filtering for incoming email to block all the, pharmaceutical advertising and all the stuff that people get spammed with all the time. But it's also what's called outbound filtering. So let's, for example, say somebody hacked somebody's email. It's also to block spam going out of their email system. So we do that as well. In terms of malware specifically, we monitor for malware on a 6-hourly basis. So if we see anything suspicious, we will notify the owner of the hosting account of the website. And sometimes they have somebody on staff or they have a web designer that can clean up the malware. If they don't, we have a service where we will go in and clean it up. And it usually takes about 4 to 8 hours to clean it up. We typically recommend then that they reset their passwords and that they update all their software.
Awesome. Okay, sounds like great services, and
Thank you.
definitely would love to have you in our corner if we ever have a malware. It's just great to know that there are resources out there with issues like malware. So, Carl, can you tell people how they can get in touch with you, and especially if they have an issue like malware, if they need web hosting and website development, how can they get in touch with ClickHost?
It's very easy. Our website URL is clickhost.com, CLICK, like mouse click,
Okay.
host, HOST.com. And all our services, we have it on our website, and you can easily sign up for it and, order our hosting. Or you can also email me directly if you want to. My email address is my first name, CAREL. So Carl at clickhost.com.
Carl at clickhost.com. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to really shine some light on malware. It's been a valuable conversation. I think it's something that we can run with and be able to just feel a little bit at ease considering, what's going on in the world in terms of malware.
Well, and thank you for making available a new service. I mean, I didn't know about LAS, so it looks very interesting. It seems to work very well. So thank you for introducing me to some new technology.
Absolutely. Hopefully you'll be hosting your labs as well.
I'm planning on doing that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, great. Let me know how it goes.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.